All right, just a little bit about me, although you've already gotten some information. I am Laurie Nave. I work at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. I've been at this particular university for 5 years. Prior to that, I split my time between UAH and a department of NASA that's responsible for satellite imagery that has an effect on forecasting and that sort of thing. Prior to that, I worked as an instructional designer for the National Children's Advocacy Center. I saw in the chat that several people who are at this webinar today work for children's services and other things. So I did something a little bit similar to that. Prior to that, I worked for an online education company. And then before becoming a full-time instructional designer, I was a school teacher, adjunct instructor, and then I did a lot of professional development with the state of Alabama for the Alabama Alliance for Arts in Education, because my initial degrees were in music education. So that's just a little bit about me. Today, we're going to be talking about building an interactive textbook using OER content. And there are really two prongs to this. First, finding good OER content, and I'm sure you've all been exposed to that a pretty good bit over the last several years, and why that is beneficial to students, but also using some tools, and there are a variety of them out there, to make that textbook interactive. So that the students are more engaged, that there's more to it than just reading a wall of text. There are knowledge checks, assessments, things that they have to do. The more they click, the more engaged they are. And so that's something that we have started doing in several classes at UAH, and it seems to be growing. I'm going to open up the chat here so that I can see it, because I'm about to ask a question or two. Today, we're going to talk just a little bit about what is OER, very briefly, because I'm sure most of you already know. Why is OER a good idea? Where do I find it? Then we're going to really dig into the building process, what tools you can use, some of the things that you can add to your course to make them more engaging. We'll talk about how those interactive textbooks can work with your LMS, whether it be Canvas or Moodle or Blackboard or whatever you use. And then there'll be time for some questions. But the first thing I'd like to ask you is, let's see, if you had to sum up what is OER in just a sentence, if someone on the street said, what is all this OER I'm hearing about? How do you define OER? Take just a minute and put your answer in the chat, and we'll talk about a couple of those. I'm seeing free, zero cost textbook, free and reduced cost materials. Yes, definitely enables equity. Somebody's got a YouTube. I'm going to have to remember that. Watch that later. Openly licensed, and we're going to talk a little about that because that's important as well. So like I said, I know that you all already know a pretty good bit about this. Subject-specific repository. Ooh, I like that. Tools they can use without purchasing. College is so expensive now, that definitely makes sense. Course materials and software that are low cost or free. And yes, there is software out there too. I like that. I prefer the term free to students rather than open, so that we have space for stuff the schools pay for on behalf of the student. That's true. There are things that your school may choose to pay for at no cost to the student, and those would still be free for that student. All right, great. Public domain, openly licensed, must be accessible, very important. And we're going to talk about how to do that within some of these courses. All right, I'm going to close the chat for now, even though I'm sure there are going to be a lot more really good answers. This is an official definition from UNESCO. Open educational resources, OER, are learning, teaching, and research materials in any format and medium that reside in the public domain or are under copyright that have been released under an open license, such as Creative Commons, that permit no-cost access, reuse, repurpose, adaptation, and redistribution by others. So that's a long, involved definition, but the bottom line is It's a resource that has no financial cost to the student. It's been assigned a Creative Commons or public domain licensing that one can reuse, repurpose, compile, adapt, and distribute. And all those are important because one of the really cool things about creating your own interactive textbook is that instead of just sending the students a list of links or using 3 or 4 textbooks to get all you need with a lot of fluff thrown in between, you can have one textbook that's streamlined that contains only the content that you're going to use in your course and that you want the students to have for that course. It's kind of like, I call it the Spotify versus a CD. A textbook that you buy in total is the CD where you may like 5 of the songs, but the other 6 are just kind of okay. Whereas on Spotify, you can choose all of your favorite songs and create a playlist. And that's kind of the way I view these textbooks. These are some reasons that I think OER is the way to go if you can find a vetted, really good quality source. It's free for the students, it's accessible, and it can be made even more accessible since it's openly licensed. You can embed many of these within the course, especially what we're going to talk about today. These are interactive, and of course, engagement is key for students. Most of these students grew up with Xbox and Nintendo, and I'm not saying everything should be a game, but it's nice when they can interact and point and click and do some of those things that they are used to doing with content. It is content specific and it's engaging. For instructors, of course, it also benefits instructors if it's free. It's customizable. One of the courses we'll look at today is a calculus course that was created using 2 different textbooks, and she just picked what she thought best worked together for her purposes, and there was no extra. They are vettable and reviewable. Some of these places that I'm going to talk to you about today are peer reviewed. It used to be 15 years ago that you weren't sure what you were going to get when you went to an OER site. It was a little bit like the beginning of Wikipedia, but now we have a lot of places where you can be sure what you're getting is quality. You can make them accessible, you can embed them within the course, and they can be module specific. And we'll talk about what that means in just a little while. These are some places that you can find good OER content. Of course, OER Commons is a great place not just to go to get content, but also to contribute content. That's something I'm working on right now with a couple of the things I've created. And the ultimate goal of these OER courses that we're creating at UAH is to have a public-facing version in the OER Commons that other schools and people can use. OpenStax is a great place to find free textbooks. They have lots and lots of books on a variety of topics. Merlot, to me, is not quite as good as OpenStax now. It used to be the other way around, but they still are a really great repository. And these don't just have books. They have videos, they have projects, they have all sorts of things. Some of them have full courses. LibreText, those are open and free textbooks. The biology course that I just finished creating a textbook for came from LibreText. Sailor Academy, and that actually has some full courses too. MIT OpenCourseWare, InTech Open. This is a good one. They are peer-reviewed open access books in the sciences. And then the American Institute of Mathematics has a list of OER textbooks approved by this organization. So if you go to this site here, and we'll click real quickly there, then you see there are all sorts of textbooks that this organization says, these are good. You can use these and feel good about them. And that's good to know. All right. So let's look at what we're going to talk about with regards to building a textbook. Textbooks, of course, when I was in school, were the big hardback books that you usually spent between $100 and $400 on. You used it all semester long, and then at the end of the semester, you took it back to the bookstore, and they would give you $18.95 for that $300 textbook that you bought 4 months earlier, and then you would start the process again. And then with the advent of ebooks, things got a little bit easier, but you usually also had to purchase a code. When I taught a remedial English language arts course for a community college for incoming freshmen who didn't pass the assessment at the very beginning, they all used textbooks, including me, but you had to always purchase a code for that. Now we could have a student walk into class and everything can be inside their LMS. The practice programs they're going to use for math problems, the math textbook itself, and they don't have to go fork out $200 or $300 and get $18.95 back at the end of the semester. That used to always make me so sad. So we're going to talk about some tools. We have a subscription to Articulate 360 at UAH. It is a suite of tools that you can use to edit videos, create videos, presentations. Rise is sort of a web-based type tool, and that's what I use to create our textbook. Storyline, which I usually call PowerPoint on crack, because you can do so much with it besides just a presentation. That works with your LMS, creates a SCORM file, or you can use links. Adobe also has their own suite of tools. Adobe InDesign and Captivate are both good tools for building some engaging, interactive presentations and textbooks and course sources. iSpring is a little bit on the same level as Articulate and Captivate. It's just another flavor of that sort of thing. There are some other free ones as well. Cloud App, Cam Studio, Screen Mix. Sometimes with free ones, you don't have a lot of the options. And of course, sometimes with open source free ones, there can be a learning curve. But all of those tools can help you to create an interactive textbook. We're going to focus mostly on Articulate because that's what I've used. But if you don't have a subscription to Articulate, most of these tools act the same way. The function may be in a different place on the screen, but their functions are very similar. It's kind of like an LMS. Once you know Blackboard, it's pretty easy to learn Canvas. It's pretty easy to learn Absorb because they all kind of have the same functions. I'm going to stop right now because sometimes I get so into talking, I forget if there are questions. Does anybody have a question or comment? Is there anybody else who's using Articulate or Captivate already at their school? Articulate, yes. Pressbooks. Oh, okay. I haven't seen that yet. All right, great. Articulate. And especially Rise. I tell you, Rise just changed the world. Rise came on the scene when I was still working at NASA, and suddenly we didn't have to have these little micro-learning clunky boxes about each little product that NASA made for forecasting. Now we could have this beautiful, streamlined Rise course that encapsulated all the products. It was awesome. Okay, HSP, H5P. All right, Pressbooks. So we've got a variety of tools. All right, let's look a little bit at how the building process goes. And this is the same way you typically build a course. You develop those goals and objectives, and everything flows from that. When we are constructing a textbook, sometimes, as in the biology book that I'm completing right now, there are chapters just like the chapters in the book, although this particular biology book has, I believe, 46 chapters. And for the purposes of this teacher's course, it's called Organismal Biology, she's only using 14 of those chapters. And so, you know, that's great. You don't have to worry about all that extra in there. So you can take just what you need. Some of the courses that I'm working on, textbooks are part of the resource, but there's also content the instructor himself or herself has created. I'm creating a computer architecture course with an instructor right now, and almost all of the content is content he has written himself. Of course, he has lots of different sources that he cites, but he's been teaching this for a while. And so this is basically his content placed into an interactive textbook. So there's so much flexibility. You outline the modules or chapters. In some books, the modules are the chapters, or the chapters are the modules. For our first year experience course, that's the way we structured it. Then when I create the content, I usually follow this structure in every chapter or module. Introduce it, interact with it and present it, and those kind of go back and forth. Review, and then assess it meaningfully. And meaningfully is the key. We've got some savvy kids, sometimes maybe a little stubborn, but we've got some savvy kids nowadays. They don't want to just fill in a bubble. They want to know, how is this going to help me do what I'm going to do in my life? So those assessments need to be meaningful. And there are ways to build that interactivity into the textbook as well. Let's look a little bit at some of these. These are 3 textbooks that I have completed or have been working on. I just completed this morning the final chapter of organismal biology. I did a little celebration. That's the longest 14 chapters I've ever seen in my life, but it was a great book. Business calculus, and then first year experience. And we're going to look just a little bit at what each of these courses look like. If you're not familiar with RISE, I think you'll really like the way this looks. It's a yearly subscription, but in my mind, it's just worth every penny. This is organismal biology. Can you still see the screen? I just want to make sure before I continue. Okay, good. I know we're supposed to be able to, but you never know with technology. So this is what it looks like. And it's separated into lessons. Now, this is just one chapter. And this is usually how I build. I've been building the organismal biology course as one large course, and each lesson is a chapter. However, when I give it to the instructor, I give it to her chapter by chapter by chapter, which really just means I duplicate the big textbook and remove all the other chapters except the one she wants. That way, when the students are in Module 2 talking about evolution of species, that's the only part of the textbook that's in that module. So that's all they're looking at. Now, of course, they get a copy of the entire textbook as well. And we also have a copy of the textbook on the library website. And then even though you can't interact with paper, just for accessibility purposes, we also have a PDF copy in the library. And I think those things are very important to have accessible to the students. So we'll just click Start Course. And this is the menu along the left. And like I said, this is just one chapter. So you're not going to see the entire menu, but you will with one of the later examples. So this is vertebrates. I usually have a little bit of an explanation, introduction, the key points, and most of that is honestly copied and pasted or just paraphrased from the open textbook that we use from LibreTexts. So just got a little introduction there, key points, some defining characteristics, and then this is where the interactivity gets fun. In the book, there's a picture, and then there's A, and you see this part of it, B, you see that part of it. It's all written out, which is fine. But when you use a hotspot interaction, they'll click on that hotspot, and then here's the explanation of the notochord. And then they go to the dorsal hollow nerve cord and read about that. The pharyngeal slits, and you can also add media to this as well. I didn't for all of these. And then the post-anal tail. And that way, it's just something that they can engage with to make them less passive when they're taking in that knowledge. Another subsection here. I like this accordion interaction that RISE has. So again, we're avoiding the wall of text. There's something they need to do to get that information. So it just collapses expands. And then again, you can add some media here. And it's important, I think, to keep it consistent. If every subsection begins the same way, then it has that consistent, predictable feel too, which I think is a good way to organize things. But I also think it helps the students organize in their mind. Oh, this is a new section because it looks like the beginning of this previous new section, and it becomes predictable. And when you're looking at this, this is also responsive. I'm going to move this out of the way here. Let me go back up to the top again. Ooh. Let's see. Well, I will show you that in just a few minutes. In just a little bit, I will go to the editing and building version of this so that you can see how it shows you what it's like when it's responsive design. Someone asked, what will others be able to use this content if they don't subscribe to Rise? Absolutely. There are several ways, and we'll talk about this in a minute, that you can access and use this content. You can use the link that I send. You don't have to have Articulate yourself in order to view the content and interact with the content. If you wanted to build the content, then you would need the tool. But students will see exactly what you're seeing here. And that doesn't matter. They don't have to subscribe to or join anything. It's literally like they're reading on the web, because that's what they're doing in this case. You can also download or export this as a SCORM file, and we'll talk about that later too, how you would do that to put it into your course. Right now, these textbooks that I'm creating are not SCORM file for the public ready yet, because we'll need to make some adjustments to take the UAH specific things out. But like I said, our ultimate goal is to have a generic, this is a version of the textbook anyone can use as a link, as a Rise file, in case anyone has Rise, and the SCORM zipped package that you can take and then embed in your own course. So the goal is to make it so that anybody who likes this anywhere can use it in one of those forms. Someone asked about the graphics. In this case, at the very beginning of this course, there's a attribution statement telling where the content came from, citing the book in LibreText, and then taking what LibreText used as attributions for the images. At the end of each chapter, I have a PDF file that is every attribution from within the chapter. And that way, everything's covered. If I happen to not have a good version, let's say this image was very, very small within LibreText, and sometimes that happens. The image is small, and when you put it in Rise, I mean, this is almost kind of blurry. Then I use Google reverse image search and find some sort of Creative Commons equivalent, sometimes on Wikimedia, sometimes somewhere else. And in that case, I will also cite that source so that everything, a Creative Commons version of that image, so that everything is attributed properly. So this graphic was actually in the LibreText book. There are some other graphics throughout this book that came from either another open textbook or Wikipedia or someplace like that have some sort of Creative Commons or public domain license that is attributed to make sure all those boxes are checked. Let's see. Let's see. Someone says H5P is another free, low cost for LMS integration. Yes, that is a good one. I definitely recommend H5P. I've used that before. I've used that actually for some of my own personal use because I do some writing courses as well. Let's see. So if that happens again, and I've got the chat up now, so yes, that's like the graphic that everybody uses. Let's see. I wanted to show. I like the way that this particular tool has the elements pop up as you're scrolling. They're a little bit more live than just text. This is what's called a timeline interaction. As you see, it's coming up as you scroll. Let's see, I wanted to show you just a little bit more. We've got this. I make a lot of use of this accordion interaction, especially when it comes to terms and parts of things. Let's see. I also like this process interaction. And when you think of a process interaction, you think step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, which is great. I mean, that's what it's called, is a process. But you don't have to just use it for a step process. I use it for different types under the same umbrella. I use it for a timeline at times. There are all sorts of ways to customize these interactions. And you can trick it a little bit. You see up here it says 1. Well, it defaults to saying step 1. Well, if you're talking about different types of fish, there are no steps, and that doesn't really fit. But if you go into settings and you just click a space, that removes the word step. So all you have is 1, 2, 3, etc. You kind of learn how to get around some of the defaults so that you can customize it more. In this way, they're clicking through all these different types. And again, it's just all about engagement. Okay, this is another, because this is talking about a different type of fish. It's the same idea, so I used the same interaction. Let me see. I don't want to spend all my time in biology, but we'll talk about another textbook now. Yes, I see anything. Yeah, the accordion action is much neater than putting the information in the margins. Yes, there's also an interaction that looks like a set of folders with folder tabs. And I think we're going to see some of that. That's also very neat way of organizing. Yes, anything AI generated would not be copyrightable. You'd have to cite the original source. I will say, even though the law is scrambling to keep up with this, if you use your own work, I was talking about this before we started. I write children's books, and I did sketches and paintings for the illustrations for my upcoming children's book. And then because I really wanted those to be a little bit more enhanced, I used something called Midjourney, using my work as a reference, and then put those elements together. It's about a dog and a little girl and a little boy. And so I used Midjourney to enhance the dog, enhance the girl, enhance the boy. And then I used Photoshop to put all of those elements together with the background image that I had bought the rights to. And so that particular image I created using my own work and all those elements, I can copyright that. But if all I had done was tell Midjourney to create a short-haired red dachshund, then yes, that's not something I can copyright because I didn't make it. And then we're getting into muddy waters. And that's why I'm kind of taking a wait and see approach about how AI is going to factor into this. All right, let's see. Yeah, OpenStax is coming out with an organic chemistry book. We're about to do 2 chemistry course books here, and I'm looking forward to that because I like chemistry. All right, let's take a look at business calculus. Math is a unique subject matter when it comes to any kind of web-based book. And we had a challenge with this because I had no idea in these web-based books how many of the equations and things were images. And I'm not going to treat you like you're a college class, but because I almost said, who could tell me why an image might be a problem for a screen reader? Well, a screen reader can't read an image. So what are we going to do with these equations that the book has as images? And so let's take just a look at that. This is a business calculus chapter. So within this course, we're talking about instantaneous velocity. Suppose we drop a tomato from the top of a 100-foot building and time its fall. And we've got the image here, which of course has alt text. And I also have the link here. I used Canva, which is a great subscription program, Canva, to create this. Someone just asked, are you able to monitor students' interaction in the book? Unfortunately, you can't track or grade what they do within the book, It's literally a textbook that happens to be interactive. And our courses, we have the textbook that's interactive, and then the assignments and quizzes related to the textbook are actually in Canvas, because we can't put some quiz questions inside the textbook and then have them graded in Canvas. There's just not that kind of communication. So they put their real quizzes that they're going to grade in Canvas, and this acts like a textbook. Okay. So here are some questions. And then I've used the process interaction to go through that process that was in the image. We've got the questions here, question F, question G, and we've got the whole process. Now, this is something that I do. Yes, this is something that I do at the end of every example in this calculus textbook. And I also do it a good bit in other textbooks. This is the Falling Apple example, and it's a PDF. Let's see here. I've got the image, but everything in this, instead of being an image, like the table was an image in the textbook. Some of this was an image in the textbook. Everything is created in Word. These equations and that sort of thing were actually created in Word and then saved as a PDF. And they also have access within the course to the Word document so that their screen reader can read all of this. And that is very important, because someone who uses a screen reader, an image is not going to help them. But if you have the actual equations, and Word is great, you can create pretty much any equation in Word, and a screen reader can read it. You can embed videos and go out to other websites. Just got some animated things there. And again, the tangent line example, I've got a PDF version of that a screen reader can use. They're asking, would it be fine? Okay. All right. Sorry, I was looking at the questions, but I don't think that was relevant to what I was doing exactly right now. This is another good interaction. Flip cards. Flip it over. Tells you a bit of information. You go to the next flip card, graphical. The next flip card, physical, and then business. And then, of course, underneath, it's in a PDF so that screen readers can use it. So yes, I don't know what it is about flip cards. They love those flip cards. Would you consider taking that example and using it as a formative assessment? I think that's a great idea. I think a great way to have meaningful formative assessments is to mirror some of the interaction that's in the book in an assignment. I think that's a great idea. So that's just a little bit about, and we could keep going, derivatives. I learned more about derivatives than I ever had forgotten from high school after doing this test. Again, the accordion interaction is one of my favorites, as you can tell. And you know by now how all this works, but I wanted to show you one more thing. Let's see, I'm going to see if I can remove this. I wanted to show you a little bit of storyline, and so I'm hoping that I have included that. This is a course that all of our freshmen take, first year experience, acclimating them to college life, and this is on information literacy. Information literacy is such an important topic to discuss, especially with new college students. I'm sure you all agree. There's so much out there. They want the accordions with long. We get feedback from students that they want the accordions with long text. Is this because they are skipping sections? That is one thing I wish that Articulate would fix. Someone asked about grading. I would love it if there was a way to know if the student clicked on these interactions. And I may be wishing for the sky here, but I'd like to know that the students clicked on all of them. There will be some students that skip, but yes, how it looks in a course. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. I think everybody knows what the courses look like for now. There are two ways that you can embed this in a course. You can use a SCORM file, That allows you to track whether or not they've opened it and that sort of thing. A SCORM file embeds well as far as the flow of the course. In Canvas, and I'm sure it's this way in other courses, you've got an assignment and then you could click, or some content, and then you can click next and the next part opens up, and you can click next and the next part open up. Oh, there are features in Canvas that allow faculty to see how much students are accessing resources. That is very good to know. Thank you for letting us know that. It does, yes, SCORM does help track what they've accessed. We have 3 instructional designers here, and I'm the right brainer. I'm the one who creates this kind of stuff. We have someone who is a Canvas expert. I mean, if there is something you want to know about Canvas, you ask her. I know enough about Canvas to help instructors, but I don't know it as in depth as I wish I did. But I did not realize that there really are features that allow you to do that. So I'm glad to hear that. If the course has restricted navigation, you can put a restricted continue button. Aha. Okay. I'm hoping this. I'm going to look more closely at this chat after we're done, because I'm getting some good information. Definitely look at the chat as you're watching me. The link is easier to upload. In fact, if you want to be just really basic, if you think you're going to be using Articulate ad infinitum at your institution, you can actually just drop the review link in there. But I don't do that. I like to have an exported zipped folder. The link is not trackable, except on the page, you can probably track whether they clicked the link. That's what I'm wondering, if we can get a copy of the chat. And several links can be listed on one page. Most of the instructors like having just a chapter per module. Some of the instructors want a page that has all the chapters as hyperlinks. And so a link will allow you to do that. Let's look at how this is. This is a sample course within Canvas. Okay, I just created this. This is module 1. This is the textbook as a SCORM file. You can either upload that SCORM file as a page, which means it opens up as its own page, or you can upload it as an assignment, which can be graded or ungraded. So if you want to put certain requirements on how much they access in as much as it's trackable within Canvas and that sort of thing, you could make this chapter of the textbook a graded assignment. So those are 2 ways. I made it ungraded because that's the way I was doing it in the other courses. But this is what it looks like as a SCORM file, as a page. Students would access it, and it's within the window, and it acts just like it did when I was showing you. It's just opened up. You don't have to click start course, so I guess that's kind of nice. And it scrolls, and on their phone, because it's responsive, it will adapt to the size of their phone. It will adapt to landscape or portrait iPad, and they can read it within the window. This is what it looks like. Let's see. As a link. This is, again, just a page, and each of these links is a chapter of the textbook. And you can also have it open in a different link, in a different window. I did not do that, but with this one, it acts just like it's on the web. And you've got, this is the biology course. This one is a lot more text. The thing that I like about this is that I can get input from the instructor. The instructor didn't want them clicking a lot in some of this. She just wanted them to read because it was going to go better with her lecture that way. So that's what we did for a lot of this. You can go back. It's probably a lot better to have it open in a separate window. I just didn't think about that. We've got the animal body. Same thing. Click start course, and you've got the textbook. So those are the ways that you can embed. And let me go on my dashboard. I want to look at another thing. Let's see. let me open my test course here. I'm going to open my test course here, and we're going to walk through uploading it. Any feedback from students that they can't find content because of having to select start course? I have not heard that from students. This past semester was the first semester that we had quite a few OER interactive textbooks in play in OER courses. And the students, of course, I'm not sure how many, we're still compiling that data. The students filled out a survey about how they felt about the textbook. What was the flow like? Would they have rather had the whole textbook, or did they like having just the chapters per module? All those kind of things. And we also are surveying the instructors to find out what worked, what didn't, what can we do better. So this is a course that I have created as part of our quality education. It's a little bit like Quality Matters Lite, our UAH version of it, for course review. If I wanted to add a textbook chapter, this is what I would do. I'm going to walk you through this process. In your course in Canvas, in the left navigation, you will see SCORM. And what you'll do here is you'll just click Upload. Luckily, I have, let's see, there is a chapter that the last chapter of that book that I just completed today, and it'll begin to upload here. This is a long chapter. So you can upload it, import it as a graded assignment, an ungraded assignment, or a page. I prefer page, as do most of the instructors, because they will really want to treat it like a textbook. And so now it's imported as a page. Now I can go into my module. And let's say I want this to be in module 1. I'll add here. And I've got osmotic regulation and the excretory system, and add that item. Now, it, of course, defaults to the bottom, but let's say I wanted it right after the overview, because I wanted the textbook right after the overview. You just move it up, and then when they click on it, they'll see that textbook. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how you would upload it and how it interacts within the LMS. All right, so that's a little bit about the sample course and how it works. Let's see. Does anyone have any questions? We've got some questions in chat, but would anybody like to vocalize any questions, or is there something that you'd like to know more about or go back and look at again?